Hi guys, Togo here with a new video, and this video will be a tier list video for World of Warcraft The War Within. And a lot of the questions that are asked about Season 1 and what classes to main are Togre, what are the easiest classes to main? Togre, what is the easiest class to pick up and to try to grind ranks? Togre, what has been the specs that are going to be easier to pick up so you can learn, and also since you have been in a hiatus, what is going to be good to learn the game as a whole. So I think one of the ways to learn the game is to pick up specs that are either very easy to play or very meta to play, or just in general just like easy pickups. But this tier list is going to address a few of these. So we're going to talk about a few things. My factors on what is the easiest specs to play comes from: is it easy to pick up, is it easy to learn, is it easy to survive on, because utility is very important, defensive is very important, will make you able to respond on damage or being able to be surviving the damage, obviously. Easy to know and recognize win conditions, and is it kind of meta, because again, if you can play the easiest spec out there, big spoiler, for example BM Hunter, but currently being like very bad just makes it very hard to play. But I'm not going to say that BM100 is hard to play, but you know the exercise. It's not going to be easy. A lot of people are going to be mad after the video. It just is what it is. But I do play every single spec in class. There are a few specs that I don't play, but I played it in the past. But I do have a good understanding on that spec, where it stands in the War Within. But I will be also explaining every single position, every single rating I will be giving to any of these specs. I will also give you my opinion and make you understand why I put them there. So do watch the full video if you're interested in that explanation. Again, let's start. First and foremost, I'm going to do class per class, so you could also have an easier time about which class or spec I'm talking about at any time. So let's start with Warlock specs. Affliction Warlock. Affliction Warlock currently is way easier than in Shadowlands. The reason is that now you have multiple schools of spells. Before, Malefic Rupture was a Shadow school spell. Now it's Shadow Flame, as I believe, or like it's again, if you're casting Unstable Affliction, you get kicked on that, you can still do Malefic Rupture, which is big, by the way. It's something that we always asked as a Affliction Warlock, and I do play Warlock as well. Affliction Warlock has been a lot easier since we have that. Obviously, casting Malefic Ruptures, if you're getting kicked on that, you get punished very, very hard, but that's the goal for any spec, really. Like Destruction Warlock, if you do get kicked on Chaos Bolt, you do get punished on that, but if you are casting Immolate and they're kicking you on Immolate, for example, well, no biggie, you still have Chaos Bolt, you still have Fear, for example. So Affliction Warlock has that easy. It does survive quite some damage, it does pack a punch, and it does a lot of damage. Now, Nightfall procs are like a blessing with your Shadow Bolts. Like, your Shadow Bolts are hurting a lot. They are like mini Chaos Bolts, pretty much. And by mini, I mean they hurt more than Chaos Bolts these days. So, in my mind, currently in Season 1, how I would rate it, it is a meta spec. Is it a S tier spec? That's another debate. I think it depends on what bracket you're playing. But Affliction Warlock is one of the specs that are or became easier to play from Dragonflight to the War Within. I think personally, having played Affliction Warlock, I find it currently very easy. I'm not going to say that it is the easiest spec, but if you're doing a hunt, you get a Nightfall proc. Depending on the, you have Hellcaller and you have the other Soul Harvester, excuse me, the other hero talent, so Soul Harvester, where if you are casting a hunt, you get a Nightfall proc, which automatically, if you're doing the math, it is 2 million minimum damage, and that's without counting the dots. That's without counting the application of Soul Anathema, for example, if you're doing Malefic Ruptures, for example. So, as a whole, it is way easier than before. And you can also like play Jinx, which basically you put a curse and you have like 2 double dots on them, so you have Agony and Corruption, or Wither if you're playing Hellcaller, for example. It's a lot easier now. And Stable Affliction is just there to protect your dots. It doesn't do too much damage. It is not there for damage, so what you need to do is actually put your curses on everyone, so jinx everyone, and then it does already do damage. They will try to dispel it, and that's why you have your unstable affliction to put the dots like in a safe space. Obviously, they're going to try to dispel it, so you have to put it again. But your priority is to have corruption and agony, or wither and agony, on the enemy, and then obviously your damage will come from, or at least your kill potential will come from, if you're playing Soul Harvester with Haunt and doing your goes with Soul Rot, for example, with your Shadow Bolt from Nightfall, that procs that you would get, and also the Malefic Rupture spams that you can also have, because Soul Rot will give you 3 soul soul stones. I don't even know the name anymore. So the spenders. I play Wotlk. I forget the names, but whatever. And you pretty much like can do a full Malefic Rupture spam on the enemy, if you can do that, obviously. You don't have too much mobility, but you have still a lot of mobility if you compare it to Shadow Priest, for example. For me, it is an easy spec. I'm very sorry. If you would say Dragonflight Affliction Warlock, I would probably put it in hardest over hard. But I think right now, the War Within Affliction Warlock, you don't need a PhD to be successful. You can survive, you can learn it pretty easily, you can pick up right away and know the win conditions, because it's literally written in your hero towns pretty much. Hero towns are high impact as well. A lot of people don't know where the damage is coming from Affliction Warlock as well, so it's very, very surprising if you're doing that, and they're going to say, whoa, am I playing versus Destruction Warlock, or am I playing versus an Affliction Warlock kind of deal? And also, it is meta. So I think if you want to have a good caster, if you want to play caster, you say, look, Togre, I want to play caster. What caster do I need to play? I think Warlock is a great pickup, because you have Affliction Warlock as a spec, which is currently very good. So Destruction Warlock. So Destruction Warlock is right now, I would say, it was easy to play in Dragonflight, but I found it very hard to play because it is just not meta. It doesn't do that much damage, so you need to prepare a lot of like your damage. You can play Hellcaller or you can play Diabolist. Diabolist is not really well tuned. You have a lot of like things that you need to understand and also track, which is not easy, because again, like depending on the demon that is coming out, you get like different bonuses, or the damage is also different. So you have one that is very short range as well, so if you want to deal damage, you want to be very close. If you want to do like like big incinerate, you want to have a specific demon. If you want to have rumination, which is cool, but it does less damage than kills both. So as a whole, for me, Destruction Warlock is just okay right now, because you have multiple schools of spells. I find it, like, again, casters are casters, right? Casters are just harder than melees in general. But I would say, like, in the caster group, I think Destruction Warlock is an okay spec to pick up. I think it just is not that great meta-wise, but you have multiple spells that are also instant, like Conflag, Shadowburn. You have instant incinerates. You have double coil, which is actually very good. You have, like, again, multiple schools. So if you're getting kicked on fear, no biggie, right? If you're getting kicked on fire, no biggie as well. If you're getting kicked on chaos, that's your fault. I mean, not really your fault, but you know what I mean. Like, you need to protect your spells. So for me, Destruction Warlock is okay. Demonology Warlock is actually hard right now. Why? You need to cast a lot. I think also you're not very easy. I would say between those 3 specs, I find because you need to cast a lot, you are exposed way more. And you would say that historically, Affliction Warlock needs to cast a lot to deal a lot of damage, but right now it feels like you don't need to cast too much to be effective. While Demonology Warlock, you kind of need to like cast a lot of Hand of Gul'dans, which opens up your schools, which is easy to interrupt, and then you can just not do anything. Yes, if you're spamming Sphere, afterwards they're kicking you, you can always do Hand of Gul'dans, but those even are not that lethal, and your damage is also very hard to comprehend. I think your win condition is also very hard to comprehend, and I do feel like although you have like great CC, because that is really a thing, I do feel like the Demonology Warlock is not easy to understand the win conditions that you want to go for. But yeah, again, it's a pet class. There is so much difficulty behind it, but I find it like between BM Hunter or Demonology Warlock, it's like 2 completely different worlds on how you have to manage your pets. And yeah, so now let's talk about mages. I think everyone can say that Arcane Mage is one of the hardest specs out there. Not really tied to the meta. It's just purely what you need to do to deal the damage. Is is quite hard. It is also a very setup spec, like setup setup based spec, which makes it very hard to do your whole rotation and have the successful impact that you would have. Obviously, in BGs, like I said, in BGs, it's very much different. You can have like the time of your life, but in arenas, trust me, it is actually hard to be very effective. I think the difference between someone that is very experiment that has played mage all his life and someone that has never played arcane mage is like it's a full canyon, right? The difference is that big, and I would never really say, look, if you're new to World of Warcraft, go arcane mage. Well, for example, if you are new to World of Warcraft, I would actually say go of affliction warlock. Although win conditions you need to learn it, but the rotation is quite simple. While arcane mage, depending on situations, your rotation changes a lot. So for me, it's going to be one of the hardest specs of the frost mage. Dare I say it's one of the easiest specs casters wise though. Multiple reasons. You have double block, you have great shields, although again you can see also the damage, the healing breakdown, right? You do heal quite a lot, but also your main damaging abilities are actually just instant. If you know that you don't need to do glacial spikes in front of enemies, you can just do orb into double lance, into flurry double lance, into another flurry double lance, into ring of fire or ring of fire before, for example. You have a lot of like those passive damage where you will just regardless do great things. You're also very good at kiting, you have mobility, you have again the meta being with you. I think Frost Mage is currently a meta defining spec. It could be nerfed. That is the reality of things. We are like pre-season, could be season 1 and getting like nerfed into in Oblivion. But right now the Icelands nerf is pretty much only 17% of damage lost to Icelands. But even then, if you account to damage breakdowns, it is only like 5 to 7% damage loss in totality of the damage that you're doing. So it's not a big nerf. It is a big nerf, obviously, but it is not like going to change how you play the game. And people are like trying to adapt to those nerfs while you could just not adapt and still do like incredible damage. And yes, the difficulty of playing caster is different than melee, but I would say that easily you don't need that much to be performing on Frost Mage. You just need to have experience, but that will come. But if you compare Frost Mage to Arcane Mage, I think the contrast is very big as well. So yeah, easiest. Also double ice block. I mean, if you're pressing ice block very well, you could just survive a long time as well. Fire Mage, I would say currently, it's not like the rotation is hard, because that is not, but it is actually very hard to make it work because the damage is so low. The payoff is very low. Like a Pyroblast is like half the damage of an Icelands, or 3/4 of the damage of an Icelands, or even lower, to be fair. I've seen like 500k Pyroblast crits, which is kind of laughable, to be fair, because it doesn't make combustion very scary. So for me, it's going to be, I want to put it in hard, but to be fair, the rotation is not hard. But I would say, if I have to like say, look, you can play any spec right now, which one would you like say which spec you need to play as mage to understand the game? I would say just play Frost Mage, and if you have no choice, play Fire Mage. But that's not really a competitive. I'm going to put it in hard, man. I think the damage is so low that it makes it very hard. Your survivability is crap. It is the lowest survivability out of the 3 specs as well. I think it's a very setup based spec as well, so you cannot really play however you want. You need to play in a certain manner, and it is really like chess instead of checkers. And you have like a certain few comps that you can make work. Between this and pre-patch is like not pre-season, pre-patch Fire Mage, where you did living bombs out of like those big explosions that you could do, and actually like the easier like AoE spamming abilities, which will make you obviously win games. That is not present right now because it got nerfed into Oblivion. So again, I would say that Fire Mage right now is on hard, and understandably, people are not going to understand that rotation doesn't do like everything, but again, I think, like I said, with the rules I have set for the tier list, I do feel like it's a hard spec. Now let's talk about warrior, and the truth is, warrior specs are just easy to pick up because it's like one of the most fundamental warrior like melee in the game. If you're playing arms, what you need to understand is how to apply pressure and how to play defensive and how to not be kited too much, which is hard, like not being kited too much. But in essence, what you need to do is pretty much like obvious, right? So you need to pin down the enemy, try to do like a good blaze storm to get like as much roots and snares away from you, CC away from you. Try to be sticky. Try to like have uptime with your more strike and being able to like again do bigger crits here and there. Being like I played warrior in Dragonflight, right? I will be playing warrior as well in the War Within. It is not really hard because I think the hardest parts are frustrations in caster lobbies if you're playing Soul Shuffle. But that is something that is bound to happen for a lot of melees. But in the melee cleave, for example, your role is very, very clear. So I'm going to put arms in easy because I don't think it's hard, the rotation that you need to do. Again, you have your overpowers, you have your more strike, you have your execute whenever you have your execute procs, your sudden death. You have Blaze Storm, you can play Slayer, which is a lot easier than Colossus because you don't need to think about like placements and whenever to do Demolish. And I think right now it is in a good spot. I don't think it's like an extremely good spot, but it is a good spot. And whenever I'm talking about Fury, I think Fury is one of the easiest specs of that. I think if you compare it to melees like with each other, I don't think you need to understand too much. Whenever you have rage, spend on rampage. If you don't, try to do your crushing blows if you're playing like a reckless abandon, for example, or do your raging blows. Do your blood thirst, do your blood buffs if you play with reckless abandon. If you're playing Slayer, use your Blaze Storm. You can play even double Blaze Storm, which is now gone from Arms Warrior for some reason. Thank you, devs. That is incredible. But also in general, your CDs are coming back very, very often. Like Arms and Fury, your uptime is quite high. Yes, you can be kited by a mage, but that is just how it is at the end of the day. I think also the rotation is quite simple. You don't need to make too many choices on what to press because it will just light up for you. And the subtlety is that you need to know like which targets you need to storm balls, which targets you need to fear. Try to not hold too much of your CDs, but that is something you learn like pretty quickly. So if I like encounter someone that is new to like retail PvP, for example, they played in Wrath of the Lich King or played in Cataclysm, and they need a melee to understand the game, I would recommend Warrior. Like I think Warrior is one of the not easiest classes. I guess it is easy, but it's not like I'm not saying that it is a class for dummies, but it's a class that is very fundamental, right? So if you're playing that, you will get your fundamentals so you can understand other specs in other classes. It's one of the most comp-friendly classes as well. You can pair Fury or Arms Warrior with pretty much any spec, and it will be a okay comp or a good comp. So I will recommend a lot of people to play Warrior. And within the tiers, I'm not going to rank. I don't see the point. For me, easiest. Frost Mage and Fury Warrior are easiest point on the line. And melees and casters are separated, kinda. So if you want to like an easy class like caster, you would play Frost Mage. If you want an easy melee, you would play Fury Warrior, for example. Let's talk about Rogue. I think Assassination Rogue is not really hard on the rotation. I think the hardest part of Assassination Rogue is learning how to survive. But now you have Double Vanish. You have also the meta being behind you as well. You have kind of the mentality of dare I say, a warrior, but you're not really a warrior again because you're not surviving as much. But you want to stay in battle so you can actually bleed them every single time, doing your Crimson Tempest to actually bleed everyone, for example. Ruptures, you get your Bone Spike, Serrated Bone Spike. You will do a lot of bleed damage, and your Envenoms are also hurting a lot. Your Fatebound, those coins are doing also a lot of damage. As a whole, I don't feel like you need to know too much about Assassination and Rogue before you start so you can be successful. But Rogue is one of the specs that is not just about damage. It is also knowing how to CC, when to CC, how to run away, when to run away, how to burst, when to vanish, how to vanish, when to use feint. If you're playing the feint talent that is reducing damage, you need to know how to have the uptime as well. So as much as I think it is not really hard to play, I do feel like holistically rogues are kind of hard to play. I would not recommend a new player to play rogue, except if they really like stealth and they want to have fun. Obviously, I would recommend rogue, but it's really kind of hard to be very successful because you need to know a lot of those matchups. You need to know DRs because that's also something you don't really need to think too much about as a warrior, but as a rogue, if you're gouging, you don't want to have like a 1 second gouge. If you are blind, like using your blind, you don't want to have like a 2 second blind, right? So those things are like needs to be picked up, and probably you will need a lot of add-ons to make it work like correctly how you would have it supported. But I think you could pick up it probably easier than, let's say, a sub rogue. I think sub rogue is one of the hardest meaties out there. Because of the playstyle. Now I have seen a few builds where I'm like really like open mouthed Pikachu, literally like shocked Pikachu watching the subtlety rogue like topping meters, which is something that never really happened in Dragonflight. But right now I see sub rogues sometimes topping meters, which is kind of crazy. So I would say that right now the subtlety rogue is less hard than in Dragonflight, but it still is one of the hardest specs because again it is like purely you need to know your rotation. If you don't know your rotation to the T and any iteration of that rotation, then you kind of are playing or misplaying subtlety rogue and you're playing like the wrong spec. And again, that's something you can learn, but I do feel like the difference between like, let's say, a Peekaboo, a difference between like a Mr. New player subtlety rogue is like massive. While I would say that a arms warrior, if you're new and you're eager to learn, you can actually learn very quickly, and it will just depend on knowledge on other specs to become better, right? White subtlety rogue is really like you need to know mechanically what you're doing. Yes, you have like those macros where you just press 1 and you're doing your whole rotation. I do feel like in the World Within you don't really have that right now, or else we would have seen at least 3 videos from Paladin before that. But right now it is not the case, at least right now. It could be changing because the echoing reprevent is actually creating for a lot. I saw like someone crit for 2 million, which is that's spicy. Outlaw rogue, hardest. Now you know what? I think outlaw rogue is hard. Let me explain. I do play outlaw rogue. I'm not that good, but I do feel like you need less amount of time to learn how to play outlaw rogue. Your damage is now correct, I would say. It is very correct actually. It's very correct for I would say the average rogue player that never played Dragonflight. If you played Dragonflight, that was probably one of the hardest I've had with Outlaw Rogue. I think BFA, Shadowlands, maybe as well. But I think Shadowlands, I didn't really play too much Outlaw Rogue. But I would say that in the War Within, with the hero talents and how they are set up, don't play Trickster on Outlaw Rogue, but if you're playing like Fatebound, you can have a lot of damage that are really just passive, and you can have a lot of success with it. But obviously, it is still a rogue spec and it can still be hard, but I think it is on the same level as Assassination Rogue, because you can just play like a warrior pretty much. You don't need to be very sneaky with your rotations to be successful with it. And if you kind of need haste though, so you have to play your haste crit, which is not always ideal. But because if you want to play assassination or subtlety rogue, you want to have mastery. But it is what it is. Now let's talk about evoker. I think augmentation evoker is easiest. Why am I saying that? Because I think the rotation is really low. You know what? You know what? I'm going to put it in easy because it is still a support spec. You need to know how to do your support stuff. When to do, like if you're playing with prescience. I don't know if people are playing right now in PvP with prescience, but previous season you could do that, like in Dragonflight. Again, that's something you need to know how to press. You need to use your defensives with Eben, for example, your molten armor, like defensively for you as well. I do feel like it has some subtleties, and it's not something I would like recommend people to play. But I would say like right now it is quite tanky. Does actually okay damage. I think it will be better with Forset as well because their Forset is actually like damage oriented, and it has okay CC, but mostly it has like great support, which you have to learn. It is really a different playstyle, so maybe that's why I'm going to put it in easy. Devastation Evoker, I'm actually sorry guys, it's easy. It hasn't really changed too much from the War Within. Now the hero talents are helping you considerably. It is really strong, and it is really annoying to deal with if you're a melee. It is definitely not the best 1v1 spec, but you're not playing Devastation Worker to do like duels or 1v1s, right? But in arena, Soul Shuffle, you can have the best time of your life if you're playing versus melees, for example, because you can really make them like very crazy. You don't have that much CC, but I think it's very like, for me it was very simple. Like it has like a few buttons, and some buttons you just don't press because it's very situational, or some buttons are like straight up CDs. So if you're using Eternity Surge or Shattering Star or your Fire Breath, it is a CD, so you're limited to when you have to press it. You want to press it on CD, but obviously it is a CD of 20 or 30 seconds, or you can like lower it with a talent, for example, like whenever you're dealing damage, but it's not that complicated. I think the most complicated thing is the lower range, but even then, if you're playing it like battle mage, where you're very close up in personal and you try to run away very close as well, I still think it's an easy spec. So for me, it's easiest, tied to frost mage, I would say, like cost wise. Now we have also healers. First healer of the bunch. I would say that preservation is okay. Why is it not easiest? Because I think there is a lot of subtleties that you need to know to become like preservation evoker and to be good. It is also not the healer that I would recommend to anyone starting. It is meta though, and that's why I'm putting it okay. Because if it was easy to play, it would be easiest because it is really meta. Like it's right now it is the best healer. Like you can play 2v2, you can play 3v3. I would say 2v2 is debatable again, but 3v3, Soul Shuffle, Soul QRBG, it is the best of the. It is also very damagey as well if you want to do damage. It is very efficient, and right now it is at its peak compared to Dragonflight. So I would recommend playing it if you're like a bit experienced, but I would not recommend to a new player or new healer. I think you have other like good healers to learn from, I would say, as first. Now we are back with hunter specs, and I'm going to make enemies. I think right now BM Hunter is okay. Guys, don't shoot the messenger. Why is it okay? Because it is crap, pretty much. It just does no damage. If you are like a hunter main, for example, and you haven't touched MM and you only play BM, I would recommend you guys swap spec, play MM, do a skirmish, do a RPG. You will know what I'm talking about. It is doing triple of the damage of a BM hunter. Right now, your pets do no damage. Your kill commands, you need to do at least 5 kill commands to do the damage of 1 aim shot, which is kind of terrible, may I say. Bomb shot, which is literally tickling people, is nowhere near the power of, let's say, arcane shot or rapid fire or anything you can press. Even the black arrow of MM hunter, which is a CD, can out damage barb shot, which is not good for BM hunters, and just because of that it is okay, and it is something I would not recommend people to play, because right now season 1 I don't hope any buffs will come, because it will just not come. It will come middle of the season probably. They need to rework a lot of stuff for BM hunter to work. I think it is too much tied to PvE, which is annoying for us. They cannot do great single target, so they have to do a lot of PvP tuning, which, depending on the season and depending on the expansion, if I don't know if they're going to do very much a lot of PvP tuning. I hope they do, but I don't think so. And BM hunter right now is just not in a great spot. If it was in an okay spot, like let's say it's a B tier spec, I would put it in easiest. But right now, if I have to say, if I have to make a tier list, 3v3, solo shuffle or solo QRBG, gun to my head, I think right now it is D tier. It is crap. I would not recommend BM hunter. I think you would be carried if you're winning with BM hunter right now. Basically, if you have a great feral druid and a great priest, you can win games, but it will certainly not come from you. It is too little damage, too little. Hunter, on the other way, I'm going to say that it is easy to play. And you're going to say, but how come Hunter being easy to BM hunter? Let me explain. Hunter is more meta, way more meta than BM hunter. Hunter does one aim shot, non-crit, 800k. Already happened to me, and I also play Hunter now. Kinda wanted to test it myself. Had the time of my life, pretty much. It is not that hard to play. You have rapid fire. You need to cast it, and you try to cast it whenever you're not going to be interrupted. But it's very important that you can do a full cast. Your aim shots does a lot of damage. You do your true shot, you get a waning arrow, which is doing absurd damage. Black arrow with Dark Ranger is insane. You get directly a kill shot, so you can actually do aim shot, black arrow, kill shot, and do like a whole rotation with then true shot having waning arrow and do even more damage. I just think right now it is in a better spot. Now, in general, is Hunter easier than BM Hunter? No, BM Hunter is easier than Hunter normally. But it is not the case. Right now, BM Hunter is terrible to play, so it is not easy to play because you are not going to win games. Hunter, though, you will win games. You will feel like you're going to be liberated with a lot of weights on your shoulder, and you will feel like it's easier because it is just easier to play whenever the spec is working very well. It is not like a classical easy spec to play tier list, because nobody is going to lie to you here. I want to say that for me, an easier spec means also a spec that is capable to do and win games. BM Hunter right now, if you're winning games, it is pretty much getting carried. Pretty much. Or the people against you are not that good. But equally leveled, BM Hunter is not going to win. And that is the case for me, why I put them higher on the difficulty list than Hunter. I will be making enemies, that's for sure. I think Survival Hunter is going to be okay. I think currently, I play myself, Survival Hunter. I don't find it very hard right now. I think the hardest part of Survival Hunter is knowing how to survive, because you're kind of melee, you're range spec, but you're melee as well. Sometimes you're range, sometimes you're melee, and your defenses are good and suited for hunters, but I would say that it would be more effective if you had a complete, for example, Cloak of Shadows or Evasion. You don't have that. You have to have Feint at the right time. You have Turtle, which is like a moving ice block kinda, I guess. It's not that great. It's not going to make you survive heavy damage, especially if you don't have a healer or the healer is CC'd. Not as much let's say Cloak of Shadow or Evasion, where you could really turn the tides. Yes, you have double wall, which is great. You have also a heal, which is great. You have your pet, you have CC, but I do feel like right now it is in a great spot because it is also kind of meta. It does a lot of damage. It does very well. They got buffed recently as well. Yeah, I think for me it is an okay spec. I know that some people might say, oh, it's super hard, whatever. I think the hardest part for Survival Hunter is surviving. and I don't think that the rotation is very hard. You just need to know your priority, and I think it actually is learnable. Now, are you going to say to me like, so Shuffle, Survival Hunter, how is it? I'm going to say that's not really efficient, and yes, it is harder there, but if you have to look at holistically, I do feel like Survival Hunter is okay. It's not hard. Again, people are not going to like the video, but it is what it is. I'm just telling the truth. I play Survival Hunter as well. I play BM Hunter, I play MM Hunter, so I do know what is like coming off easier or harder for me. Disc Priest. Guys, for me it's easy. Why is it easy? You don't need to cost too much, and the things that you cost, they can kick you and you still have a cost. Now you can play Voidweaver, which I think is a bit harder than Oracle. I think Oracle is a bit easier, but the meta spec right now is Disc Priest with Oracle. Doing damage while healing is something that is a luxury that not a lot of healers have. I do also feel like the hardest part of Disc Priest is to know when to use their CDs and to not overreact, and to know how to turn on pillars without having a lot of mobility, because Priest doesn't have a lot of mobility. Those are the hardest things. I don't think CC is hard because you don't really have a lot of CC. You have only fear and mind control and a root. It's not that much, right? For example, resto druids, you need to know how to cyclone, you need to know when to cyclone, you need to know how to juke a cyclone. The fear, you can learn how to juke a fear depending on who you're facing, but generally what you're doing is fade into fear. Or for example, you speed you up, fade, fear, that guy cannot do anything versus that. The damage is like pretty simple. You're healing while doing damage. And you're doing damage while healing, so it's really good. I think Disc Priest currently in the meta is also quite good as well, and you don't lose that mana. Mana is not an issue anymore. So if you want to have mana issues, play Paladin, you'll understand. But right now, Disc Priest is really like on the easiest part of its existence, I would say. Let's talk about Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest is hard. Dust. Because you need to know how to CC. If you are a Shadow Priest and you don't know how to CC, you don't know how to do a focus macro, you don't know how to do a chain CC, you don't know how to prepare your damage, you don't know how to survive because your mobility is very low, you don't know how to play, how to deal damage, how to do pressure, it is going to be hard for you. So for me, it's going to be the hardest caster in a game with Arcane Mage right now. Holy Priest, I do feel like it is okay, because although it's very simple to play, because it doesn't have too much, the meta kind of dictates you to not have fun right now. I do feel like right now it is not meta. Maybe the Prayer of Mending buffs are enough to make it meta, but I don't think so. I think it needs a bit more. And right now, I would say that it is okay to play, but it is not easy or it is not hard. It is just purely the meta is dictating you however you are going to feel in the game. I don't think you have that many buttons, but you still need to know when to press them. You need to know that, look, you play around mastery, and to have the best value possible, you want to have also, with your Serenity, use it on the lowest HP pool possible. But doing that, you play with fire, right? If they have low HP, they could just die directly. But if they're low HP, you can full heal them correctly without over healing. So it's nuanced. I do feel like it's harder than Disc Priest. You have Chastise though, so that's a good thing. But you need to know that, look, Holy Priest right now, it is not in a great spot. Well, Shadow Priest is in a great spot, but it is still a harder spec, for example, based on CC. Shaman. So as you may know, I am an enhancement shaman main. I also am an elemental shaman main. Didn't make too many videos of elemental shaman, but I will do it very soon. Elemental shaman is maybe the easiest caster in the game in Dragonflight, because your lava bursts were instant and were proccing with lava surges pretty often. you were not casting too much. It was lava burst, earth shock, lava burst, earth shock, lava burst, earth shock, which kind of made them into rework. So pretty much this is not an option anymore. You can play the lava build again, which is like without volcanic surge, which makes it possible to be instant again because of the lava surges. The issue with that is that currently the procs are not that great. They are not often, so you still need to cast a bit for less results. So the easy part of Elemental Shaman is already gone. Now you need to cast way more. And casting, as you may know, is not something easy to do in PvP. You have multiple schools, but if you're kicked on Lava Burst, you kind of hope that you are at least spec'd into Lightning Bolt. But if, like, into the nature damage portion of the tree, but if by any chance they have like two people that are kicking on nature and your volcanic damage, which is lava burst and flame shock, for example, I think flame shock is still volcanic, and I think lava burst is fire right now, or maybe volcanic. I don't remember, to be fair. But it can still like get kicked pretty easily. So I would say it's not easier anymore. It was easy. I would say that it is okay based on the meta. Still need to learn how to fake cast. You still need to learn how to kite, because yes, you can kite as elemental shaman. You need to know how to CC efficiently and wind shear, whatnot. But right now it is not at the greatest spot. It is in a good spot, but not the greatest, because you cannot really cast instant as much as before, which is making the life of a lot of elemental shamans very hard compared to what they known it for season 4 Dragonflight, or for even the pre-patch of Dragonflight, where there were really pre-patch of the War Within, so not pre-season but before that. They were really strong elemental shamans, so a lot of people are falling from very, very far high. So for me right now, it is an okay spec to learn. I would not recommend it to everyone, that's for sure. Enhancement Shaman is a spec that is the hardest in the game as well. You have a lot of buttons. The button bloat is enormous, and it's not like button bloat for button bloat. It is button bloat, and like everything you're doing is useful. The issue with that is that to learn a spec, it is very hard to learn Enhancement Shaman from zero, because you will not have a lot of success with just basic knowledge. You need to know your matchups, you need to know what to happen. Your PvP towns are vast and different, so you need to know which one you need to take. Your win conditions are a bit unclear, because it is either RNG or you're playing around pad damage, so you're pretty much a dampening spec. You have Totemic, which is not, in my opinion, I don't like it, so I'm very biased, don't get me wrong. You can make it work, I guess, but still a lot of management on your buffs. You need to also manage your surging totem as well. Stormbringer is easier, but you do get guided and you don't get a lot of things from it. I think for what you input in the game as an enhancement shaman, it is not really giving you the return of the output for enhancement shaman. So for me right now, I'm not really recommending everyone to play Enhancement Shaman. For people that are looking for a new thrill, I would say, and they are never played Enhancement Shaman and they are veterans, I would recommend them, but with a side note. It is not meta, and it is likely never going to be meta. And if it's meta, for some reason, it's getting cut down on the knees directly. Like, for example, cats, where they do get the amputation on their nails. So you have the nail, then you have the skeleton. No, it's called the bone. Some people amputated in that. That's stupid to do, though. So don't do that for cats. But literally every time you're getting buffed and like S tier or A tier, which doesn't happen that often, but when they do, they cut you on the knees, they cut you where it hurts, and you're back to C tier like region. So if you want to play a risky spec, play that. I play that. I suffer. I get frustrated. I need alts and mains to like alleviate me from the pain I have with Enhancement Shaman. It's very, I made a guide again. I shoot in my own leg, but I cannot recommend some people play enhancement shaman because it is very frustrating. But on the contrary, it is also one of the most fun specs to play. I think in open world PvP, I do feel like a god, like literally 1v2s. But in arenas where dampening is there, or with coordination where literally they can kite you all day, every day, it's not as fun. That's for sure. But it is what it is. Also, I think it is one of the hardest specs to like attain your objectives. So right now, it is not recommended. Resto Shaman, it is a hard spec. Why? Although for me it is top 3 healer, I think right now, if I have to account everything, it is still a very key bind bloated spec. You need a lot of key binds. You need to know a lot of stuff. It is very positional as well. I think a lot of the stuff that you are good, you kind of need to know what you're doing, which is fine. You can learn that. And it's very rewarding as well because healers, like whenever they are like very good at it, you're pretty much accepted with anyone and everyone. If you want to be glad, for example, and you don't care with whom you're going to get, if you're a good healer, they might get you in the group because glad people always look for good healers. So if you're 2k, for example, and someone is 2.4, they will likely invite you to make them their own healer in long term. Now, it's not for everyone, right? If you don't want to heal, understandably, and if you don't get like easy rating, which is also understandably the case for a lot of people, I think it is understandable that some people will not like playing healer. But if you have to decide a healer to learn and to progress, I feel like Resto Shaman is very satisfying to do so and very satisfying to play. But I still think it's also a hard spec to play as well. Meta-wise, it is meta, and right now Fast Surge, it gives you 3 Riptides, so you don't need to cost too much as well. But have a lot of keybinds, you need to limit test the spec, and it is actually quite hard to maintain, I would say. You cannot really play Resto Shaman and AFK for 1 month and come back and do very good. That is not the kind of spec you can play right now. Feral Druid, for me, it is one of the hardest specs. It is not a recommended spec for me. It is a spec that you need to put a lot of time into. It is rewarding though once you have done it, but it is also like a risky spec to the point where you don't like. Right now, I think it's okay because the meta is there for you, but I would say that it is like enhancement shaman where they don't want feral druids to be very meta for very long. So now the question is, if you're ready to learn, are you ready also to play something that is not meta most of the time? That is the question. I also think that Feral Druid is like one of those specs that you kind of need to one trick to become very good at it. So you need to play Feral Druid like day in and day out. And at one point you will have the elimination of a Feral Druid and you will be like very godlike. But for that you need to be committed. And not a lot of specs are like not altable. But I would say Feral Druid is one of the specs that are not really altable. Like you need to main it to become like very good. Balanced Druid, I'm very sorry, for me it's an easy spec. I think your damage is ridiculous. Your win conditions are very easy. A lot of stuff that you need to learn can be made by macros, like for example Root Beam. You could, like again, Cyclone, you need to know when to Cyclone and how to fake a Cyclone, but sometimes you don't really care to get kicked on Cyclone. You can just like get kicked on Cyclone and you can do your whole rotation as well. And it is one of the most frustrating spells to play against. So for me it's an easy spec. You're going to say, but you're putting Boomy easier than BM Hunter. I understand that, but understand that Balance Druid right now in the meta is actually very strong. So you're going to win more games as a Balance Druid than as a BM Hunter. So then the question is, what is easier, the one that you're winning with or the one you're losing constantly with? That is really the question for me. It is a pretty easy answer on my side. Resto Druid, I would say it is a hard spec to play as well. I think people are underestimating the difficulty of Resto Druid. You have multiple forms a lot of keybinds. You need to know how to HUD. You need to know how to maintain those HUDs, because once the maintenance is gone, you're going to get like destroyed. So you need to know how to do so. You need to know how to kite. You need to know how to juke. Need to know the maps and positioning. Need to know when to cyclone, how to cyclone, and when to not cyclone, which is also very important. You need to know how to maybe feral weave. If you're playing like a 2v2, you need to do some damage. If you're playing like a feral, if you're playing like a boomy, you have situations that you can do that. But again, those are things that you need to learn. I think people are recommending resto druids or like living in season 3 Dragonflight, which is fine, but it is different in the war within. I do feel like right now, with how the damage is done, you need to learn resto druid, and it will take time to become very good. DKs, for me, Frost Decay is one of the hardest specs out there. It is not really a recommended spec for everyone, because it is still a setup spec. And yes, you can play like more of a consistent damage dealer, but you need to learn how to kite. You need to learn how to deal damage. You need to learn how to change CC, which is not easy. You need to double grip into blind, into like the like endless winter, where you're going to stun everyone. Remorseless winter, excuse me. Stun everyone and do your whole rotation. Know that your damage is really much coming from Pillar of Frost, although right now a bit less, but it's still coming from there. So obviously you need to learn all those things, and it is a setup based spec still. So it comes with the price of what comes from a setup based spec. Though I will say that right now Frost Decay is kind of meta in my eyes. In 2v2 you're not going to have like a lot of success, but I think in 3v3 solo shuffle, solo RPGs, you're going to feel very good with it. You kind of need a healer though, so if you want to have maximum fun, you kind of need to play with a healer. But I do feel like right now I would not recommend DK to be mained, at least Frost Decay. But Holy Decay on the other hand, I feel like it's a bit easier, although it still has the same difficulties as in Shadowlands, where those wounds, maintaining diseases, again the kiting needed, your pet management, the CDs you're going to use, that is hard. But I would say that it requires a lot less setup. You can basically play without like a big CC chain to win games. You can basically rot them with dampening and just like at one point win the game. Because of how you deal damage and how you are going to do damage, right? So for me, right now it's a hard spec. I would say Frost Decay is harder than Holy Decay, which historically it would have been the other way. But right now I think Holy Decay has been normalized, I would say, in how they do damage. I think it's pretty like straightforward. And Rite of the Apocalypse, which is the hero taunt, is helping you a lot with the problems that DKs has. And you can also play Sunlight, which is also good. Interesting, a bit harder to play though, but still very interesting to play. So I think I would recommend people to play DK, to play Unholy DK, and to say also with a disclaimer like, look, there is a steep learning curve, but once you have passed that, it's going to be easier for you. And that's something I would then explain, but I would say like, look, if you are choosing between DK or Warrior, what is the easier class to main and to learn? I would say Warrior, for example. But I do prefer DK in a lore aspect, where having also the extra CC, the extra control is also quite cool for me. So fun factor, DK, more practical, logical reason would be Warrior. Paladin. So interestingly, Holy Paladin is right now, I would say it's pretty straightforward, so I'm going to put it in easy. Why? I think the spec itself is easy to follow what you need to do. I think the issue with Holy Paladin is you don't really have a thing that makes you really what you are. Blessing of protections, like those immunities, are what makes Holy Paladin, The issue with that is currently it is not as strong as before. Right now you have a lot of specs that have these spells, you have a lot of specs that have magic damage, you have a lot of specs that can actually go through those mobs, and it makes it a bit less interesting. So I would say it's easy, but to climb with a Holy Paladin, it takes a lot of work. So I could put it in hard, but I think if you want to learn the fundamentals of healing, you would play Holy Paladin or Holy Priest. If you want to learn how to heal to court, I would even play Disc Priest, and it would be fine. But if you want to learn the pure fundamentals of a healer and what they need to do, I think Holy Paladin is one of my go-tos. I would say, like, look, if you want to learn the game, you want to learn healing, and you just want to learn like the fundamentals, Holy Paladin is there for you. If you want to play healer because you're a DPS and you just are tired of queues, I would say go play Disc Priest because it's quite easy to pick up and also very fun as a DPS to play. Retribution Paladin, I would say, is a easy spec to play. I could say easiest, but I think it's easy to play because you still need to know a few things that makes Paladin, but also in general, I think there is a lot of like counters for you that are like just straight up counters, but I could say easiest to be fair. Like I'm thinking, look, is the rotation that hard? I still think it's like on the same level as the Arms Warrior. The Divine Shield, Bobs, that's all cool. Utility that you have, the defensives that you have. You have off heals, but to be fair, they are not that great either, so you don't really do that all the time. You have freedom, which you can just do a macro on the ally, so you also have freedom as well. You have ways to play and to make it easier for you. For me, I'm going to put it in easy right now because you're still like a utility spec based spec. So obviously you still need to learn the utility and the support behind it, but I think the rotation is quite simple, and the generating holy power has never been as easy as right now, depending on the hero specs, of course. Having Demon Hunter, I'm going to be controversial right now. I'm not thinking it's easy. Right now it's okay. I think the hero towns, you have one, which is Felscard, which is piece easy, but you are losing a lot of like the utility, and it is one dimensional kinda. It plays the same all the time. So that is easy. So I would say Felscard DH, easiest. Riva DH, okay, because you have a certain rotation, and depending on the rotation that you're doing, you're either doing a lot of damage or you're doing a lot less damage. So that's why I think personally, from Dragonflight, where it was one of the easiest specs, to right now where EDH is actually like nuanced, I would say it's still like very easy to pick up, but I think it's more nuanced than Arms Warrior right now. So I have to make some separation. Like if I feel like it is more nuanced and you have a lot of more of these subtleties, like for example, glimpsing out of the stun or trying to survive as a DH, is vastly more difficult or more nuanced than would say a Arms Warrior or Retribution Paladin, where it's more straightforward. So I think DH right now is harder than Shadowlands, and that's why I'm going to put the separation between those two. Shadowlands, I would say Dragonflight, excuse me. And I think between Dragonflight and the War Within, DH doesn't play the same and is not the same currently. Are you going to be successful at it? Yeah, I think it's very meta. But if you're playing Reaver, you kind of need to play and to know your rotation and what you need to achieve. If you're playing Felscard, yes, it is easy damage, but you will have less defensives and you would have less of those interesting things that you would have with Reaver, for example. Mistweaver, I would say, is also a very easy spec to play. If you are playing fist weaving or casting Mistweaver, I think it is just a kind of PvE based spell heal, like spells with as a healer. So you need to stand still a long time. Obviously, difference between a very good one and a very bad one is massive, but it is easy to learn though. If you're just watching Mystical, for example, to learn Mistweaver, you're going to have a great time and you're going to learn very quickly. If you're playing Fistweaver, to be fair, You have a lot of guides for that, but it is not that hard. Like you're punching to heal pretty much. It is very, very effective as well. If you're playing versus pet classes, for example, if you're playing versus casters, you don't really want that. You want to be able to stick on the enemy if you're fist weaving, which is not always the case. But I think if you want to climb with a healer, I think mistweaver is a great option. And I would recommend new players to play mistweaver if they really want to know the fundamentals, but also have a laid back feel of what is healing in general. Obviously, laid back doesn't mean that you need to not do your work. Obviously, you need to fake cast, you need to kite, you need to know how to TP. But those things are like easier to learn on Mistweaver than, let's say, a resto druid or a resto shaman. Windwalker, I think right now Windwalker is in okay. I don't think it's hard. I don't think it's easy. I think the meta kind of shapes around you as well. You have now that whirling dragon punch that takes you in the air, which is very annoying. Please nerf that. Like, please, you gotta nerf that. I think it's so frustrating to play against. It is just not fun. I prefer them knocking us away in any points, but it does happen too often for it to happen. But I would say that it is it's unconventional to play monk. Like if you're playing monk and you're playing warrior, it is like two different play styles. Although Miss Windwalker has been more warrior-ified, may I say, it still is a class that has nuances on how to do your utility, your CC, but also how to survive and use TPs, for example. Your rotation is quite simple, but also can be very hard depending on the combos that you're doing. So I do feel like right now Windwalker is in a okay spot if you want to learn the spec. So this is my tier list. It has been a long video, but again, as you may know, I do like making those videos and to explain my train of thoughts. Hopefully you do learn a lot of stuff with the things that I did say. Hopefully this helps you to decide which classes to main. So a few questions that you would ask. If I want to learn caster, which classes should I learn? Frost Mage, Devastation Evoker, Affliction Warlock, Balance Druid, Hunter. Those are great pickups. If you want to learn a healer and you are DPS, play Disc Priest. If you want to learn a healer but you want to be like just healing, play Mistweaver. If you want to learn the fundamentals, play Holy Paladin. If you want to learn how to, I would say, learn CC, how to deal CC, you can always learn Affliction Warlock, you can always learn Balance Druid. Those are like the classes that you can learn, but also have success with it and also being able to climb with it. For me, you need to be able to win if you're playing like easier specs. BM Hunter right now, although it is easy and probably the easiest specs of that, it is not performing, so it is not easy. You want to win. If you're not winning, it is not easy. It is just like bad. So that is the explanation on my tier list. Hopefully you do understand that. Hopefully I don't have like pitchforks in front of my video, literally waiting on like stabbing me. But I think it's very important that you understand it is not a jab playing a easier spec. Fury Warriors, Frost Mages, don't take it wrong. It is what it is. It doesn't mean that it is bad. It doesn't mean that you're low skilled. It doesn't mean that it is boring. It just means that you're like beginners friendly, which is good. You need to have that. That's why Amumu is very good in jungle for League of Legends, for example, to learn jungling, because it's very basic, but very good at it and very fun to play as well. So it's the same for Warcraft, where Frost Mages, Fury Warriors, easy to pick up, easy to have fun with it, and easy to have results with it, although you still have to work to get that Glad or Duelist or Rival, whatever goal you have. It is still a way and a road to do, but the road is a lot easier and less bumpy on a Fury Warrior than compared to a Feral Druid, for example. Again, thank you for watching this video, really appreciate you, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. Have a great day, bye.